Hello everyone, I'm here today with a new process video and I'm working in my traveler's notebook about the books that I read. And the first thing I want to point out is I think I added this after the last video I did, so the front of it probably hasn't been seen. I've done the washi already because I had a little part that came undone over here, so I'm hoping this helps keep it together. But then I decided to add some of this paper. Lovely little books on a shelf there, and the phrase that says all you need is a good book. So that's my cover for 2020. And then I showed this before, but I have that as my opening page. That's an acrylic piece from Colorcast Designs, if I remember correctly. But for today, the book I am going to work on here is called A Gentleman in Moscow, and I absolutely loved this book. It was actually a selection for the art museum where I live. They do a book tour every month, and this was one of the selections, and I thought it sounded intriguing, wanted to read the book, and just couldn't get it done before the tour, so that didn't happen. But I still had it on my list, so I finally got to it, loved it, and now I'm going to scrap about it. So I have pulled out all of my pocket cards that are reading related. I may want to use something there. I've also pulled out all of my stamps, but I got a new stamp set that I want to show. So I got this one a while ago and I haven't used it yet. It's from Kelly Perky. It's called Storytime, from this year, just a little bit earlier. And I love a lot of the phrases that are on here. So I'm not sure that I can use any of them here, but the idea is there, so we'll see what happens. But really, I also need to figure out what I want to do in the background, because that will determine, can I use one of these cards or not? Will it work? Or if I use a card, do I want to keep a white background? Hard to say. So I'm going to start with some ideas floating and just see what happens as I go. So I pulled out my 4x6 cards, and generally speaking, those don't work well in a traveler's notebook because they're too wide, unless we're going to kind of tip it sideways, but not all of them will look good that way. But I found this one, and it's very plain, just black and white, but I like the idea of cutting it down a little bit and then possibly taking the photo and adhering it like that, kind of maybe along the top or the bottom, and then leaving the rest for journaling. So I would definitely have to trim it, which is totally fine. And then if I use it, I'm going to have to find a colored background of some type to at least cover part of the page, because I can't have white on white. So I've pulled out my bag of stuff that's also reading related to see if I have any papers that might work. I need something red, and actually, as I look at this right here, this makes me think of the fact that part of what this book is about is that this is a man who's considered a gentleman in Russian society, and he is exiled to a hotel for decades, literally decades. And so time creeps very slowly over those years when you can't leave a building effectively for that long. You know, he leaves once in the case of an emergency, but otherwise that's it. So this might be fitting. I'll have to see if I can work that in. But otherwise, I think having something red would be good, because I've got red in the title here and everything else is black and white. So I need something that's going to pop. So I've decided I do want to use this. I looked through my stuff and I just didn't find anything else that I thought would work as well. So I'm going to use this one. And I've decided I want to put this at the bottom, and then I can have my journaling more towards the top. So actually I'm going to turn this sideways here. And I want it right about there. There we go. Okay. And then I partially cut down this card, but not all the way, because I want to make sure this is going to fit, and then figure out how I want to line it up, because it's going to be very close edge to edge. And I don't know that I want it to be like that, where the whole midsection is covered, or if I do, I haven't figured that out yet. So I may trim off a little bit more so that there's a nice border, or not. I may do edge to edge, but it's going to sit like this, which I think makes it visually interesting. So I've decided I pretty much will go edge to edge. So I had my trimmer out and I already cut this down widthwise. I also shaved off just a little bit on these sides just to make it fairly close to the photo, because I do want to see more of that red peeking through. So I figured the more red I can get, the better. So that's a pretty good, border, I think, around there. So now I can add this. And I'm thinking as I'm doing this that because he was exiled in his own country in a building for so long, I may write something about how it felt, because when I was reading this, it was kind of right at the beginning of the most intense part of the coronavirus pandemic, where we were put on lockdown. And so we weren't allowed to, I mean, we could still leave our house to go get groceries and stuff like that, whereas this man couldn't do that. But just that feeling of isolation and that you are not allowed to leave. It's an interesting parallel given the time in which I read this. So I may or may not say something about that in my journaling, not sure. But I think that's going to go just like so. Yeah, I like that. Ooh, do I need to ink it though? You know what? I think I should, otherwise it's going to blend in too much. Maybe in a light gray? Let me check. I am going to ink the edges just so they stand out a little bit more against the background, and have decided to use my Sahara Sand from Stampin' Up. It's fairly light, so let's do that one. I have some other grays that are much darker, although this is coming out pretty dark. It looks lighter on the ink pad. This one's fairly new. I haven't used it a whole lot yet. Let's see. Well, that's not bad though. It gives it some nice definition, so that's okay. So I'll let that dry for a minute there, and then I will adhere it. I decided to adhere it slightly off center so that you could see most of the clocks that are in this top row. These are mostly covered, which is fine, but I wanted something that was almost whole at the top to bring out more color and to bring in that feeling of time passing so slowly. So I have that. Now I have to figure out what I want to do up here. I do definitely want to journal, so I'll probably have to add lines there. And then I was looking at some of these phrases, and I like a couple of them. I'm not quite sure how to work them in unless I were to do like a label or something on the top, which might be a good thing to add in, again, some more color or something. So I'm still thinking about that. Okay, I have made my lines there, and now I'm going to look at possibly finding a label for the top that will overlap a little bit, so it'll cut off a little bit of the journaling space, but I kind of like doing that. I'll just journal around it. If I can find a good label that has what I want and that I can stamp something on it, and I think I'm going to possibly look for gray, because I've got gray here, and I think if I just do red or black, it's going to be maybe too much. I could always do a gray label with red stamping if I really wanted to, but we'll see what I find first. So I've picked out this label, I think, and I want it to go kind of right up here at the top and probably overlap either like that or that in some way, but none of these phrases on here will fit. Then they're all too big. So I have to go into my other stamps to find something more suitable. I have selected this stamp set, and this is one from Carrie Bradford's studio. It's called Read. I don't remember exactly what year. I think it was 2018 or 2019 that I got it. So I have this, no idea if it's still available, but I'm going to use the stamp that says worth reading, because it definitely was. This is particularly good for somebody who's interested in history and the Bolsheviks. They feature in this. This is why he's exiled. So if you have any interest in that at all, or just general Russian history, this is a good read for you. So now I have my label ready. I have the stamp on my block, which, look at this. You can tell I stamp a lot in my scrapping. This block is disgusting. So perhaps when I'm done with this layout today, I need to clean that. Ta-da! There's the label. And I decided to do it in red because I figured it would need a pop of color up here because I have black lines and then my journaling is going to be black. So I figured I better have that. And I still may find some little enamel dots or something to sprinkle around because it feels kind of flat to me. But I'm going to start with this and then determine once it's on there, do I really like it? Is it done or not? I have attached that and I cut it around the edge there, trimmed off a little bit and cut it to match the page, the rounded corner there. And I love it. Then I went into my enamel dots and I actually found these little gems that are older ones from close to my heart, and they have kind of the perfect shade of gray there. So I'm going to use some of those. I have added in 3 of those little gems there, and I'm happy with that. I don't really want to add anything else because I want this to be pretty bold, and then I want my journaling to be red. So I think that's all I'm going to do with this one. So here's another one done for my TN about books. Thanks for watching.